How's it going, everybody? And as always, welcome back to Continues to Tick. My voice is back, my energy is back. I'm happy. And friends, this is time passing. 2 weeks ago, we were last here with the shorter video. This will be a normal video, just like my typical uploads. But take a look at the timestamps down below. There's a certain area that you're mostly interested in. We're going to start with the dividend portfolio review, just like we newly have been. And then after that, we'll get into the topic for today's video, which is me wanting to talk about 8 things that I constantly forget as a dividend investor. So let's get to it. So jumping straight into it, friends, we're wasting no time today. As you can see, $79,986.40. And this was almost going to be a different video today. I actually had hit or crossed, for a moment, right? 80K in portfolio size. That would have been today's video, 80K, going over how much a dividend portfolio pays you when you have a portfolio size of that amount. But we didn't hold the line towards the end of the week, which is no problem. But as you can see, friends, this is the all-time. I haven't been a fan of how M1 does their calculations ever since they changed it. It says money-weighted rate of return of 42%, whatever that means. I don't like it. I used to like it when it would just give you the exact percentage that you would show as a return, right, for your portfolio, if that makes sense. Maybe some of you guys have the same complaint as I, other people have complained, but it looks like it's here to stay. So we'll adapt. As far as all time, on this chart, it says dividends earned all time is $5,082. It says all time market gain is $12,162. And as we move down, friends, it's still tech, 277.81% return, which is a $9,000 gain. And we're going to click on it here in a second. But following this, we have energy with the $700, financials with the $2,000, and so on and so forth. But as far as tech, friends, this one, we already know why. And honestly, I wasn't planning for it to go this way. I just decided to buy Nvidia a long time ago when I first started this portfolio. And I just continue to funnel like I always do. And Nvidia just happened to be the golden child that popped off. And now I have, it says 1,000% return, which equates to a $7,504 gain. But it continues to be the golden child. If you hold it in your portfolio, maybe just like me, you're like, oh man, whoa. And you get like a shock factor every time you look at it. And for me, I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to try to be, outsmart this and sell it and rebalance my portfolio. My strategy has always been to buy and hold until I'm given a reason to not hold it anymore, which for me as a dividend investor is, maybe consecutive dividend payout cuts, right? They continue to slash the dividend payout. Then I'd consider selling a stock. Or if I know a company is going downhill for whatever reason, right? But a lot of these are blue chip companies, and the ones that are like Nvidia, they're just really hot, future oriented holdings that I at the moment don't have many concerns. I'm not a growth investor, I'm a dividend investor. And I think these chips for their computers and AI in the future will be around for a while, and I'm not going to touch it anytime soon. I did want to share because that one is the main reason for the big growth of my portfolio. If it falls back eventually, well, then we'll live with the consequence. But let me just show you some activity here. It looks like M1's lagging a little bit, but I continue to fund $100 every single week into the portfolio. And it used to be $150, but I got this next job opportunity kind of looming, and I'm excited for it. It's still with the state. I'll still be getting a pension. I'll unfortunately be taking a pay cut, so I'm adapting my finances to adjust for that. Well, Jesse, why are you taking a pay cut? I've mentioned it before. It's technically a job promotion. It's like investing 2-3 years into this, growth opportunity in my career, where then I could then leverage that for a substantial pay bump in the future. But I'm also trying to get out of the prison, right? Odd to say. For those that don't know, I work as a RN in a prison. That is my source of income. That is my shovel that I work with. And I'm trying to break out of prison. I mean, when I go to work, guys, I don't have my phone. I have to walk like a mile just to get to my desk through all these doors, all these locked, parameters and, key control and all this. And I'm looking for this next opportunity, trying to leverage my time, work from home and leverage some of my side hustles this dividend portfolio, but mainly my Male Nurse Mentor YouTube channel. If you have any interest at all to become a male nurse, go check that out. Hopefully you find a lot of value on there. That is kind of like my baby that I'm trying to, kind of continue to grow up. So I put a lot of energy into that at the moment. And let's see, as far as holdings, I think we already took a look. We already know that NVIDIA is the biggest return. It says 555% here. So I don't know what the difference was from before, but M1 Finance has an interesting way of doing their calculations. It might be with dividend payouts. I don't know, honestly. But it says overall my portfolio has a gain, 15.97%, which is an unrealized gain of $11,000. So my cost basis was $68,973. My portfolio's current value, $79,986, as we saw. So right after NVIDIA, ExxonMobil tends to be my next best holding, followed by McGrath RentCorp, which is an interesting one, right? You wouldn't think of it. Snap-on, they're actually my best performers. So no flashy hot names in my top performers, right, in terms of individual holdings, which for me over time has opened my eyes to what it means to be a dividend investor, and honestly what it takes, right? The mindset. A lot of it is just mindset. So with that, friends, let's move on to the topic for today's video. So here we are again, friends. I want to talk about 8 things I constantly forget as a dividend investor. We're going to walk through them, one at a time. I'm going to talk about each one at a time. So I'm going to start with this first one here, right? Time passes regardless. Why do I forget this? Well, for me, friends, I started this portfolio at the age of 24. I'm 28 now. I'm going to be 29 this year, and time has passed. Time continues to pass. And the thing that I realize is that it continues to, but oftentimes I forget, right? When I look at myself, when I feel how I feel, I still think of myself as that 24-year-old, right? When I first started, except life has passed. I've gained wisdom. I look older in a sense too, right? My body changes, my thought process, and I like to imagine I'm more mature at 28 than I was at 24, but it's like you don't think of this. This is kind of the point that I'm trying to make here, is you don't think of time passing, but you have to remind yourself that it does, because to not think about it, it makes you waste time, right? You don't use it, you don't leverage it, you don't take advantage of those moments, of that duration. Like for example, if I was just thinking about starting a dividend portfolio at the age of 24, and I didn't think of time passing, right? I didn't think that, 4 years would pass, 5 years would pass. Like maybe I would never have started. But time has passed. And fortunately for me, I did start at the age of 24. And I've leveraged it. I've utilized that time as a dividend investor. And my portfolio has gone from $0 to nearly 80K in that time span. And that is because at one point in time, when I was 24 years old, I thought of time moving forward, and I decided to take action and create a dividend portfolio, and then, do all these other things, right? Fund it, set a schedule, continue to work as an RN to make money so I can, fund it, right? You come up with a plan, you go into action, and you continue with your plan. But you have to understand that time passes regardless, and it's easy to forget. And when you forget, it's easy to not take action. So that's what I mean by that first one. It's easy to forget, guys. As far as for the second one, it will not go exactly as planned. And I forget this. Sometimes I truly forget that, it's like I thought of this vision and I thought it would go exactly like that. When I first started this portfolio, did I see NVIDIA blow up like this? No. If I did, I would have put all my money into NVIDIA, right? Would have been a growth investor, and I'd have a significant higher return at this point in time. But the idea is I set my portfolio, NVIDIA was in it, and NVIDIA is the one that blew up. And that wasn't my plan, but it still worked out. It worked out because the fundamentals were there, and it worked out because I continued to fund into NVIDIA, right, through my strategy, and now NVIDIA gave me a big return. So, and that's how life goes. Like your dividend portfolio in a way can mirror your life, right? You're going to make these plans and set these goals and look into the future. And you kind of have to look into the future with this strategy, right? And as an investor, you're future oriented, right? You're goal outcome oriented. So you look towards that. But just understand that it's not going to go as planned. It can go out not as planned in a positive way, right? Like I just mentioned, but it can go not as planned as a bad way too, right? For me, when I first started investing, I was investing $500 every single week. And when I did my calculations and I was having all this fun, I was seeing how big my portfolio would get in a certain amount of time. But the reality is, I have a domestic partner now. I don't have any kids. And I'm looking to take a next job opportunity that's actually going to give me a pay cut. So now I have to look at my finances, right? My Toyota Camry broke down. I had to get a new car, right? As I increased my life, I needed a bigger space. So now my rent increased. So things happen. And now my funding schedule went from $500 every week to now $100 every week. And that wasn't planned, right? So just as it can go positively, I would say that one's a negative one. And the idea is to adjust and pivot, right? Adjust and pivot your plan. The key is to never stop, right? So that's what I mean by it will not go exactly as planned. But as far as number 3, friends, you only lose if you can't adjust. And this kind of goes hand in hand with the second one. I touched on things won't go as planned negatively and positively. Well, the positive ones, you don't really have to change anything. I mean, yeah, I can sell my stock that's going well and use that money to go to Greece or something, but I probably won't. On the negative side of things, right, when I had to decrease my funding schedule, I could have just stopped completely. But I realized it's better to go slow than to stop completely. So instead of just going from $500 every week to let me just do nothing, I went to 500 to then 100 or 150, and you have to adjust. That is adjusting. It's better to go slow, is what I realize in life, than to stop entirely. Keep going. It's better to keep that path alive than to stop it, let the weeds overgrow that path and not be able to see that path again. Versus if you just kind of walk that path slowly, every once in a while, you keep heading that way, the path will always be there. It's better to see the path than to forget it exists, if that makes sense. So that's what I mean. But you only lose if you can't adjust. If I stop funding entirely, I stop. My portfolio is set to not grow, right? Apart from just the natural progression of the market. And for this next one, friends, opportunity only presents itself if you're ready, right? For this one to me means as long as you do the right things, you set the right habits, have the implementations of your plan going for you, the outcome that you deserve is the outcome that you get. So if you're doing all the right things, it's only a matter of time before that good outcome comes to you. Same thing could be said vice versa. If you have negative habits, you're doing negative things, that outcome you're going to attract is a negative outcome. So for me, when I think of opportunity only presents itself if you're ready, if you stay ready with positive habits, a good implementation of your strategy, that outcome from those good habits will be a good one and it will present itself. But you have to stay ready. You have to stay in the game. If I continue to fund with the strategy and an amount, the opportunity is going to present itself. Nvidia is a good example of this. I just continued to buy Nvidia. That's all I did. And I stayed ready. And then the market popped off for that stock. And the outcome is good. I didn't do anything different. I just maintained a good outcome. I kept tabs on it. I never sold it. I held on. And regardless if I was ready or not, it presented itself and it happened. And that's how an opportunity tends to unfold. So for this one here, friends, number 5, success happens in the consistent implementation. When I think of this, I think of an endurance race, right? When you think of life, when I think of life, I think of life being an endurance test. Those who can endure life in the best way often have the best successful outcomes. So success happens in the consistent implementation of, again, good habits, but also of an ability to endure. For a dividend portfolio example, setting your frequency, setting an amount. It's often easy to forget to just do these simple things. But just by doing these things, you keep yourself in the game, you give yourself an opportunity to be ready, and you give yourself an opportunity to succeed. So if you do these things consistently, the chances of succeeding increase. That's all I've been doing. So when I think of being a dividend investor, I focus so heavily on the fundamentals. I don't focus so much on the research, week by week. I think of the very basic things I can do. which I just named. Choosing an amount you can afford to invest into your dividend portfolio consistently over time and never stop. And then when issues happen, you adjust and pivot. Boom. That is it. That is my plan. And I've just been consistently implementing that since the day I started until now. And I'm not saying I have the best dividend portfolio by any means, but for me, friends, I'm content with my overall results up to this point. And that's, if you were to ask me, Jesse, what's your plan? What's your strategy? It's literally that piece that I just said. And I would recommend that to anybody. So as we go down here, friends, number 6, overthinking and overanalyzing are both barriers. I often forget this, but I often remind myself that I don't overthink and I don't overanalyze my dividend portfolio, which for me, thankfully, I haven't put myself in a position for it to be a barrier, but I see a lot of people do it. And it's common when you first start out, it's very tempting, but be careful with that. At some point you start becoming a short-term investor. A long-term investor buys and hold, period. You have to buy and hold for a good amount of time. A short-term investor buys, looks, sells, buys again, looks, sells for better opportunities. Plant that seed, water it, watch it grow. If in a year it's not working out, if in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years it's not working out, readjust and pivot, maybe cut it and try something else. But give it an opportunity unless you really fully know that it's not working out. I like to use the analogy of the spin and pivot so much. You change, you spin, you pivot so much, you're just going in circles. You're getting no traction. Every time you get to a fork on your hike or on your road, you continue to take a left turn and a left turn and a left turn. And before you know it, you have made a full circle, right, on your path. And that's what I think of when I see people overthinking and overanalyzing. And these things are barriers. So for me, friends, I continually have to remind myself when it's tempting, when I see that next hot stock or some holding that I think is going to do better, I remind myself to be patient. It's working right now. It's doing okay. Don't sell this for that. Be patient. See it through a little bit more. See it through. That's what I mean by this one here at number 6. And then here for number 7, friends, growth happens in investing organically. The return happens over time. Sometimes you will get lucky, or you will time it just right, and maybe it's not luck, but it sparks just at the right moment, at the right time. Everything lines up perfectly, and it was intentional. But now try doing that again, and now try doing that again, and now try doing that again, and the percent of times you're able to do it from all the attempts that you've made, it may not match, right, that successful outcome. Or maybe that one time you sparked so well, made up so much for you, so much ground, and then you spoiled it with your next few moves, right? So when I think of being a dividend investor, you have to think of the long term. You have to think of decades ahead. You have to not be in a rush. As fun as it is to realize how quick of a return you can get, right? You look at your phone 1 second, you look at it the next, and it's like so significantly more, right? It's fun. But I also didn't like that feeling of anxiety of that next quick return, that next win. I like that organic growth. And I realize that growth happens organically when done correctly. For me, friends, being a dividend investor, I look at it as a decade-long process, multi-decade-long process. I'm 28. Let's see what it looks like when I'm 50. Let's see what it looks like when I'm 52. That's my plan. But for me, friends, I've shifted my mindset of going for that home run, right? That Tesla, that Bitcoin. Nvidia would be like that, but the intention is different this time. I didn't expect it to pop off like this. I just continued with my normal game plan as a dividend investor, and it actually paid out for me. Somehow, the opportunity presented itself because I was ready. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't aiming for it. So it feels different. It feels a lot better when you're not aiming for the home run, and instead you're going for base hits. And if you're a dividend investor, you require that second mindset, the base hit mentality. And for this last one, for me as a dividend investor, the busier you are in your normal life, doing the things you want to do, right? Working, making your income, personal development, hobbies, relationships, whatever it is, if you have kids, taking care of your house, all these other things, right? Do those things. Allow yourself to stay busy so you're not always focusing on the outcome, the day-to-day outcome of your dividend portfolio. Because again, This is a multi-decade long process. Think of it as a very long-term strategy. Don't burn yourself out thinking of the day-to-day, going for home runs. There are no home runs in a dividend portfolio. That mindset would be flawed. That's my honest opinion. As a dividend investor looking at your dividend portfolio, looking for home runs, you're looking at it flawed. It is watching paint dry. It is watching grass grow. It is a very slow process to see a successful outcome. I went from $0 to nearly $80K in about 5 years, right? And that's from like really going heavy with my funding amount at the beginning and then titrating it down now. But the key is I never stopped, right? And the key is I never continued to make adjustments that hindered myself and my progress. Stay busy. I can't recommend that enough. And allow this opportunity to recognize you're trying to set your future, right? Your retirement. And so that's going to be it, friends. Thank you guys so much for sticking to the end of the video if you happen to be here. As always, friends, I will see you in 2 weeks. We'll see what video presents at that time, if we'll cross the 80K mark or not. I'm looking forward to it. Either way, you got this, friends. Good luck on your continued journey. See you on the next one.